Okay, this video will be about how the theory of Spamalot both worked and did not work, and what ideas for the team look like going forward. So in Spamalot's first vet season, season 63, it went 32-0, and the closest it came to losing was this game, 21-0. The halfback totaled nearly 25,000 yards from scrimmage. This plus this, with over averaged 11 yards per touch. Defensively, those games were shutouts or close. After this season, the changelog was updated significantly, and each player was given a full respec for free, which worked on 100% of the build. You could reset the entire build back to rookie before any points had been spent, because the changelog was updated so much. Relevant patch changes included heavy nerfs to Trash Talk. Actually, we can just go check it out. Heavy nerfs to Trash Talk, Brace for Impact, Conditioning, and teams that didn't have enough play diversity. Did I pass it? No, it's down here, yeah. This one. Run tags were also buffed, alongside Pursuit and Contain Expert, and most importantly, screens were no longer counted as pass plays, meaning that an all-run team could simply be passed or could be run tagged, no longer with penalty. And I mean that's fair. That's fair. Technically, screens are passes. These changes hurt, but thanks to the 100% respec, it was not the end. So, since screens were no longer a win condition, the quarterback respect to be a passer, because they used to be a shed sack quarterback, the caps are kind of bad. They made the most of what they could do. Um, they pass okay. They pass okay. Uh, Pass blocking was also added to the offensive line. This is just one of them. But 30-25 is a lot more than like 10. And a lot of points were taken out of run blocking and put into physicals too, because it has more of a carryover between both pass and run. Defensively was the bigger change. This is another offensive lineman. Defense was the biggest change, not just because of the changes, but because I felt that the defense was not doing what it was supposed to do. Mostly because intimidation, one, hurries are not as effective in GLB as they would be in real life. Uh, on most teams, especially good teams with high pass consistency on quarterbacks, hurries don't really do anything. Um, Also, beatdown was redundant. Uh, Players that have 100 pass rush power and tunnel vision create such a huge morale difference simply by rev caking that you don't really need beatdown, and it also turns off tunnel vision, so you get less sacks and you get less rev cakes because sometimes like a fullback or a halfback will pick up the block afterwards. Also removed showboat from the defensive ends in favor of shed block, and got rid of hold ground on most of these players, including the nose tackle, because I found that playing for rev cakes on the run game on the defensive side doesn't work out nearly as well as it does in the pass. Not just because of tunnel vision, but because offensive linemen generally have much more investment into the run. So if you want the initial plan, if you want the fullback to block a defensive lineman instead of a linebacker or a safety, you have to draw their attention somehow, but pancakes was not the way. So we went with shed block, which saved us a lot of points on whole ground. Shed block works much better. You don't have to rely on anything. It pretty much procs all the time. And honestly, probably should have done that from the start. Also, I found that the super speed defensive tackles, these guys have been getting rev kicks at a much higher rate than expected. Um, in previous seasons, pretty much on par with the defensive tackles that went max in these stats, max in Tim, max power. And I realize momentum plays a pretty understated role in the defensive line. So a lot of points are taken out of intimidation, as we mentioned, but also out of the run blocking and the consistency, because we don't really care about winning the blocks as much when we have the speed to back it up. Uh, so the whole defensive line was basically retooled to focus on getting to the quarterback instead of trying to force bad passes. Sadly, because it didn't work. Maybe one day in the future. The middle linebacker traded. Let's blitzer first. The middle linebacker traded a lot of points for going really high into shed block. They got rid of sure-footed. This is a build that has been tweaked in another season. Last season it had brick wall. It doesn't really matter. The point is that perhaps there's too much of an investment in dealing with fullbacks. In practice, even teams that run diamond with two fullbacks seem to not be terribly successful running the ball. But in theory, you would think that the fullback is enough of a concern that, say they get to the middle linebacker, who is your designated tackler, you don't want that to be the end of the play. You don't want the safety to end up making the tackle with a cornerback or someone pursuing from behind. So to really just cement the middle linebacker being always the one making the tackle, especially when they have something like monster hit, that can have so much of an impact. Although their force fumbles are getting lower. I give him shed block so that he never gets blocked, and it actually is probably the best change I ever made to this team. And finally, the left outside linebacker went even more into pass rush with tunnel vision, mostly because nobody was really running at this player, and even when that happened, it wasn't like as big of a swing as I had anticipated. Also, the free safety and the strong safety were given closing speed, not in that season, but in last season, just because there's literally nothing better to take, and closing speed helps on unexpected plays. So, season after, this was the first season. Season after those changes still went pretty well. Ladder was 30-0, but we finally lost our first game in the championship to Bose Springfield Adams. He called only halfback screens the entire game, and as we mentioned before, that is one of the three major weaknesses, if not the major weakness to this team. I mean, you're blitzing 6 on every play, and it relies on the middle linebacker always getting there. Springfield Adams has a very fast, in fact, a faster halfback, I think, than our halfback. So this was a really good game, and that was our first wake-up call that changes needed to happen. So that offseason led to a few more buffs to pursuit and outside contain, as well as some significant improvements to speed wide receivers, and some changes to the passing game that some feel were buffs and some feel were nerfs. But the speed wide receiver was definitely a significant upgrade for passing. So leads us to where we are today in the current season, which is a Spamalot that is finally losing games. Shout outs to Dr. Edgar today, Mango Fandango, plus Dolomite, plus Hero, and GE, who was the first to do it this season. Part of this is due to the community getting wise to Spamalot's tricks, as well as new quality teams coming up the ladder into vet. Either way, it's good that Spamalot's playstyle, which and I'm sure at least someone else finds to be boring, uninteractive, low risk, and obviously by the name spammy. Fortunately, that's no longer the best or even only way, as it seemed back in this season, to win games. You have a lot of good reasons not to play like this. I mean, sometimes it's literally like watching paint dry. And yes, the team had to be made, but would I ever do this again? Absolutely not. it can be it's like low risk, high reward. At least that's what it used to be, and it would really be more fun if it was low risk, low reward, and high risk, high reward. Spamalot's halfback has been held in check by well built defenses, getting like 2 and 3 yards a carry in some of these losses, meaning that what used to be the cheapest offense in the game, which used to put up 100 points a game regularly on the back of a single superstar, is now performing at the level of its cost. Uh, Decently, but would be much better if it had invested more. The defense is still strong, but not impossible to break, with wide receiver screens emerging as a new weakness, especially with the addition of a new SA hard cut. In addition to a well-designed passing attack, which is what happened in Southside Rebels game, and halfback screens, as we already knew. So Spamalot is finally at a point where the chess match of play calls is what determines the outcome of the game more than anything. To beat spam, you must also spam the weaknesses of spam, which opens up a lot of counterplay based on what each team thinks the other will spam. And it's additionally, the current state of vet has finally forced Spamalot to call different defensive play calls, possibly even those that don't put all 11 superstars in the field, which we tested in a scrim with Edgar, where I have so few defensive players on this team that are capable of actually playing defense that it had the halfback playing the safety, and it was still working. So perhaps there is some room to test out things that otherwise seemed unthinkable. Not only that, but Spamalot finally has reached a point where passing is necessary. Inside runs, outside runs, and screens are getting stopped for basically no yardage, while passing against what is always run tags is actually performing better, even despite what, if you look at, are basically rookie level builds for a lot of these pass related players. Slow and doesn't really catch that well. High consistency because the plan was to test the run on first and second, and if it doesn't work, then you know you've been run tagged too much and you can pass on third. So consistency was there. Also in the fourth quarter, when you're losing games, generally because you tried to run into run tags, you have consistency to help you out. Also, mostly because the caps are just just not there. So it just so happens to work out that consistency is good. That will inform a lot going forwards. But yeah, passing is actually, even against teams with good pass defense, successful just because of the run tags. The game is afoot. So going forward, Spam will probably pass a lot more and actually consider risking not only passing but passing all game. Defensively, we will try more formations and play calls, even when lacking the proper personnel. In the next offseason, the halfback will probably be respect for gold juke. Just so there's like insurance, the possibility of a touchdown when otherwise the team has you contained. The middle linebacker will probably trade some tackling, which is unnecessary, for more speed and block shedding to deal with the screens. And some of the special teams players, which have to this point only ever played special teams, like half the offensive linemen, this one, and this one, may actually need to be remade to play in regular downs. And the cornerbacks will have to become even more focused on outside contain, probably dropping cover expert and all the coverage tech in favor of contain expert and footwork and quickness. So yeah, this I think I actually can't express how good I think this is. In my opinion, the cat and mouse game of constant adaptation, not just season to season, but even game to game, I think means that GLB is finally reaching a point of healthy balance. Thank you for watching.